Hello and welcome everybody to a Thursday evening program with the Genealogy Center. My name is Elizabeth Hodges, for those of you who might not know who I am, and I'm a senior genealogy librarian here at the Genealogy Center. Okay, so let's get started. So tonight's program, Who Walked These Streets? Building an online platform for historic neighborhood research. This is kind of my baby. So I just want to give you a little context before I turn my camera off. I have been working on this project for several years. This is my neighborhood. It is also a work in progress. So please be nice to me. I would love it if you're all nice to me. So don't try not to be too mean. I'm going to turn my camera off really quick. Great. So what this will be is I'm going to show you how to build an online platform for historic neighborhood research and how to do it for free, most importantly, because free is important. So first thing first, why should you study neighborhoods? Well, every street has its own story. Every house has its own story. As somebody who does genealogy, I like to research people, right? So I kind of think of this as a genealogy of a house and a street and a neighborhood. Everything has a little bit of color to add to it, add to the overall story of a home beyond just what it looks like. It can also help you understand community change over time. Maybe a neighborhood back in the 1860s was primarily German, but by the 1890s is primarily Jewish. These can all kind of help us understand what changes over time, kind of the ebb and flow of who's coming in and who's leaving. It's also great for preserving memories before they are lost. I can't tell you how many times a neighbor has said to me, oh, I saw this title abstract, but now I can't find it. Or, I had all these old photographs that a previous owner gave me, but I stored them in the attic and they were destroyed. So by reaching out and developing a connection with the current residents, and that kind of goes in with the next point, it will, one, get people interested in the neighborhood, in the history of the neighborhood, but also interested in helping you preserve the neighborhood's history as well. And it also just kind of builds community pride and engagement. It's a fun thing. People like to know, is my house haunted, right? So studying the whole neighborhood, it can put things into context for people and get people excited and engaged. So what we'll do today is we will create a free accessible website about a neighborhood. I'm going to show you mine. I'm going to show you how to make one. We will talk about interactive maps. We will also talk about digital archives of photos and documents, so how I organize digital files, and oral history collection platform. That's, we might not get into that exactly, but I will preface, before we move on, I will preface this. We will primarily be talking about Google products. If Google is not your jam, that is okay. I understand. It is not everybody's thing. So if that is not for you, this program might not entirely be for you, but you don't have to only use Google products for every single part of this conversation. But I will say the website creation thing that I am using is Google Sites. So if that's not for you, maybe this program isn't for you. I also want to point out, again, this is a work in progress. There are nearly 200 homes in this neighborhood. It has taken me 3 to 4 years to research the ones I have, and I won't be done for a while. So the tools we'll use, like I said, we will be using Google Sites, which is a free website builder. We will also be using Google Maps, more specifically, Google My Maps, Google Drive for cloud storage. You can use other cloud file storage systems like Dropbox if you prefer, as long as you can create shareable links to files. That's the big thing, being able to link out. All of this is free, aside from Dropbox. Well, Dropbox, there is a free version of Dropbox, but all of it is free with a Google account, and it doesn't require any coding. Now, if you looked through the handout, you probably would have noticed a little bit of code. I promise. I will explain, and you won't break the internet. That doesn't have to do with necessarily the website. That just has to do with a shortcut for figuring out latitude and longitude, which we'll get there. So the first step of all this is planning your research, really organization. You can start with one street or one block. You can gather basic information from each house. So city directories, the census, newspaper clippings. One of the things I really like from the newspaper are property transfers and building permits. These are gold because if I'm having trouble finding a deed to a house, this will help me. But the best part about the newspaper is the drama. Sometimes you can find things about a divorce happening between a homeowner and his wife, which I have found that, and it is incredible. Sometimes you can find things about somebody, say, moving to another state, but maybe they didn't sell the property. Maybe they were renting it for a little while. All kinds of good stuff. And I will say this about my neighborhood in particular, a lot of people lost their dog. I don't know why people kept losing their dogs, but it kept happening. Another thing you want to look for are deeds, if possible, if accessible to you. And then you want to create folders by address and record type. So this is how I've kind of set things up. It is up to you. How you organize things is however it best makes sense for you. And remember, you can use whatever cloud storage system you want for this part. Like I said, it just needs to have the ability for you to create a shareable link. So this is kind of how I organize my files on houses folder. So I will go by street name. Up here, you'll see files on houses, Harrison, and then the address, and then record type within there. So for example, we have the census, city directories, deeds, photos, newspapers, and files on particular owners. Now, I will say I don't research owners past really a certain period in time just because of privacy. I don't want to, intrude on people who are still living, but I will not put anything up that is not already public record. Really, sometime around 1950 is my cutoff day. I will say for this property in particular, I did go all the way up to 1976, I want to say, but that's because the owner died in 1976 and he had no children and had no family. So this is an exception to that. But at the end of the day, you don't want to make your neighbors angry. We don't want that. We want them having fun, we want them excited, and we want them engaged. So the next steps, I'm going to show you how to set up the Google site. We will talk a little bit about interactive maps using Google My Map. And we will talk about, just completing and publishing the site, linking everything into your Google site. Setting up the Google site, step one of that is planning. So I kind of put these 4 phases of planning. First being, what is the purpose? What do you want this site to achieve? To share research? You want to use it to collaborate with others? Create a resource for the community? What type of content are you planning on including? So maps, documents, oral history, organization. How do you want to structure it? Do you want to do it by address, by family, by time period? And who are you creating this site for? Is it for the public? Is it for researchers? Is it for maybe people in your family? It all depends on you, but these are good things to think about when you're setting up a Google site, just so you kind of know where you're going. So in a moment, I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint and we will go through each of these 4 things on how to create. So creating the Google site from nothing. We're going to talk about organization, so organization of pages, kind of the layout of the site, linking to Google Drive files, and enhancement. Enhancement, these are the fun extra bits that aren't necessarily required, but they're fun and it'll make it more flashy, if that's a way of putting it. So let me get out of this and we're going to do this live. Now, I want to give you a little bit of context for some of the purpose and reasoning why I did this website. So this website, well, this neighborhood, I should say, Williams Woodland Park, it is comprised of 9 additions to the city of Fort Wayne. So if you're not from Fort Wayne, these are essentially separate neighborhoods. It was once farmland that was platted into lots, and these lots would be called additions if they're big sections. So the outline is Creighton to the north, South Harrison to the east, Woodland to the south, and Hoagland to the west. And that includes both sides of the street for all of this. Now, when I started doing this research, I was only researching my house. And then I started finding things for other people's houses, and then it just snowballed. And then I wanted to basically create a plat map that would have the old addresses from before 1902, the current addresses after they changed in 1902, the lot numbers, and what edition. So I ended up making this wild thing in Google Sheets. And I did this so that I can essentially link all of these to individual files. I showed it to one neighbor, and that one neighbor shared it with everybody else. And then I decided I need something prettier to show people than this. So that's why I created this website. And yes, it is still called Mapping Williams Woodland Park. So just to kind of give you a little tour of what this is, the homepage, you have links to all the other pages. So we have a general neighborhood history. You can browse files by street. We have digitized title abstracts. These will actually link out to the Genealogy Center's website. This is part of the community album. So the community album, which is something that is run by the Genealogy Center and the library, we do have a collection for Williams Woodland Park. There's also a collection of historic photos that are also on the Genealogy Center's website that are not in the community album. So you can take a look at these. We have another link that just brings you to digitized resources. So if I open that, this is just more resources that the library has digitized about the neighborhood. Always more being added. A map collection. So I will talk more about this in a moment, but I love maps. For those of you who don't know me, maps are my jam. Before I moved here, I worked for the New York Public Library in the maps division. Maps are my happy place, and they can tell you so much. And then finally, this interactive map. This is a work in progress. I even have a little disclaimer about it. This doesn't behave well on Google Maps. So I tell people don't try to open it in Google Maps on your phone, but in a browser, it works relatively okay. So I could say, click on a house. It will give me the address, the historic name, who the first owner is, the year it was built, the link to the Google Drive folder on that house, which is right here. We'll come back to that. Now, this is the Indiana Historical Sites and Structures Inventory. This is part of a database online called SHARD, SHAARD. They have ratings for all these properties, so this is the next outstanding. I put the survey number in case anyone wants to find it on SHARD, and the latitude and longitude. These I have found when making this map, including these, make the pins actually go where they're supposed to go. But I'll show you how to make this in just a moment. Now, files by street, these just link out to Google Drive. There we go. So not all these files have things in them. So I always tell neighbors when I share this with them, check back and make sure that something hasn't been added to this. Now, I do want to point out, because I see that somebody is saying that I'm going awfully fast. It's okay. This program is being recorded. It will go on YouTube. And all the instructions I'm about to give you are in the handout. I made it a really long handout for that purpose. Okay, so let me close that. So let's go first to how do you create this? So if you go to sites.google.com, if you Google search Google Sites, this should come up. Now, you want to start a new site. If you want to click up here and choose a template, I would choose, for this kind of thing, a really kind of plain template. I think I ended up using this one. but there are a number you can choose from, and then you can customize. Yeah, this is the one that I chose. And then you can kind of customize it from here. You can change all these pictures. But the next thing you'll want to do after you choose a template you want, the first thing is to click on the settings button, which looks like a wheel cog up in the top right. You can change where the navigation is. So if you're going to have multiple pages, you can have it either on the side or the top. I like the top personally. You can change the color of it. You can have it be transparent or white or black. Now, some people have a logo, some people don't have a logo. My neighborhood just happened to have a logo they like to use for things, so I put mine here. This stuff, you can just leave this the same. Custom domains. Now, I did put some links to some YouTube channels in the handout, YouTube videos, I should say, on how to create a custom domain. You don't have to. Google Sites does create a free domain for you. That's totally up to you. It's whatever your preference is. I like free, so you can just use what is already there. Analytics, this is really more if you're wanting to see who is looking at the site, how many clicks, all that stuff. If you wanted to put an announcement banner, this is where you would do that. This would be like, everything is broken, or announcement, there is a tour happening soon on this such and such date. That kind of a thing. Okay, so the next thing you'd want to do is also name your site. So let's do neighborhood test. You can edit that here too. So this is at the top in the banner. You could put a description here. And this image in the background, you can change it. So if I click image in the bottom left corner, I can either upload something from my computer itself, but if you click select, you can choose these stock images from Google, or you can get something from your Google Drive. So I'm going to go to recent and see what I've recently opened up. I had a good one a moment ago. Let's do this one. This is Fairfield Manor. Well, that looks a little wonky. Yep. So I don't like it, so I'm going to reset it. You can change it as many times as you want and play with it to see how you want this to look. If you click on this little button with the triangle, the square, and the circle, it gives you a selection of themes that you can choose from. I think I chose diplomat, maybe. Or you can upload themes. I haven't done this because I was going the easy route. Now, if we scroll down, again, you can edit all these boxes. If you say wanted to add a text box, you just go under insert, press text box. If you say wanted to add an image, again, you can either upload or select it. Let's do that one. Insert. Now you can make this as big as you want. Come on. But there are limits to that. I will say, so let's go ahead and publish this because I want to show you something kind of cool. So when you're publishing, it will have you create the web address. So this is what that Google domain looks like, sites.google.com/view/neighborhood test, whatever you name it. Like I said, this is free unless you want to do a custom domain, which this is easy. So let's see, who can view my site? Right now it's at anyone. If I wanted only select people to do it, I be able to see it. I might change this to restricted, and I can invite very specific people to this. So you just add in their emails, and they will get an email granting them access to the site. Okay, so publish. So let's click on the preview button and see what this looks like. See, this is not quite what we want. See how I made it a little too big? So there are limits to this. It's not perfect. So you don't want to make your images way too big. But you can also, instead of adding an image, say we did the same thing with, let me go back, by clicking, instead of add image, click drive. And then I'm going to just press recent, and we'll click on that same image. Okay, so let's do that. If we publish it, so all of your changes are being saved automatically, but if you want it to actually be reflected live on the website, you do have to press publish, but it will show you all of the changes that you made compared to what's currently on there. It all depends on how you want it to look. So let's get rid of this stuff. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is pages. So under pages, now I also want to point something else out. You have these things called content blocks. So say you want to add 3 images with 3 different names of, say, pages, say like map, files by house or street, title abstracts. You can put that there and add images to each one. And then you can also hyperlink it. So do that. Now, if I click on pages, if I click on this plus sign and press new pages, okay, that creates a new page. So going back to that home page where we just were, if I highlight it and press on this little button that says insert link, it defaults to letting you select a page that already exists. But you can also link out to another website. Okay, so there it is. So once it's published, I should be able to click on this and have it open to the next page. Okay, so let me show you a couple of things on my site, and then we'll also edit some things as well. Okay, so on this general neighborhood history page, go ahead and go to that page. This is just a basic history of the neighborhood. We do have some images here. This is an image carousel. That's what that looks like. So let me actually copy this and I'll put this here. So I can switch between images that I upload. You can, to the best of my knowledge, you can upload as many images as you want. There we go. Now these buttons, these are all links to specific things. So this one would take you directly to the National Register of Historic Places application. So let me actually do this on the published side so you can actually see. If you click on that, it brings you to the Google Drive folder. Why? It's a big document. So it's 122 pages, so sometimes it's a bit slow to load. So it'll open up like that. You can also click on this button, which is similar to what is on the home page as far as digitized resources at the Genealogy Center. But this shows you that you can link to other websites. And then this is to the community album, which this brings you to the landing page for the Williams Woodland Park neighborhood collection. And then I just have a really short kind of about the neighborhood. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. It's meant to be a taster to get people interested. Not everyone wants to read a Russian novel length about page. Files by street, I think I pointed this out earlier, but these are just individual links to files by street. So if I say click on West Woodland, and then I click on 334 West Woodland, you'll find censuses, city directories, newspapers, photos. These are recent photos I actually had to take for a thing. These are also photos of the family. I meant to rename that folder. See, like I said, it's a work in progress that I am always trying to update and make sure it's okay. I'll have to change that later. This is the first family to live in the house, the Stutter family. And then sometimes I'll have vital records about some of the residents. So did somebody die at the house? Was a baby born at the house? So I will collect things like that. So we have a birth certificate and a death certificate for 2 different people who lived in the house. When I'm researching, I will usually open up a document that's kind of like my working, I'm trying to work out what I'm seeing, and I like to create a little timeline. So I'll put at the top what the legal description is, approximately the year once I figure that out, and some of the first residents, and then I just kind of create this timeline. Not everyone has a title abstract. So in a lot of ways, what I'm doing is sort of recreating an abstract. Not entirely, but I'm establishing chain of title. Okay, so that's files by street. Now, I could have a button for every single individual property on, say I clicked on this and opened a page that had buttons for every single one. That I could do that, but that would take a lot of time. And there, like I said, there's around 200 properties in this neighborhood. So I chose the easy route. Will I change that one day? Maybe, probably. The beauty of the whole Google site setup is that it is relatively easy to change things and add buttons. Now, I do want to point out this map collection. So I do have atlases and sheet maps, plat maps, and Sanborn fire insurance maps. So if you click on atlases and sheet maps, so these 2 things right here, this has to do with redlining. It is a part of a project called Mapping Inequalities, Redlining in New Deal America. This is called a mortgage security map. And yes, you can zoom in on these things. Now, say you would want to zoom in more and it's not letting you. If you click on this button up here, it pops it out into a new tab, and then you can zoom in as much as you want. Sometimes it takes a minute to load. Same deal with this guy. This is from Fort Wayne in the environment. So what I did was I would put underneath each one what it is, and I would make the text hyperlinked. So let's go back to where we can edit. Okay, say I wanted to hyperlink this. I would just highlight it and then press this link button, and I can put a link to anywhere. These are typically going to Internet Archive, where I got the thing from. This one, which is a 1855 map, excuse me, of the city of Fort Wayne. Now, this area, it wasn't developed yet, but the man who would eventually create the neighborhood, who the neighborhood is named after, there's a picture of his house from when he lived downtown on the map, which is pretty cool. Now, when you're looking at it in the regular old viewer, you can only zoom in a certain amount, like I said, before You can't zoom in anymore. But if I want to be able to see what all of this says, I would just click on this pop-out button and then I can zoom in even further. So again, this is one that you can zoom in pretty far, which the neighborhood is right here. It's kind of wild how much detail was in Griswold's bird's eye view. So many trees, so many houses that don't exist currently and houses that haven't been built by the time of this map. But again, this links out to Internet Archive. Now, the neighborhood is called Williams Woodland Park because it literally used to be a park. So I was able to find a map that showed where the park was. Now, this guy, Williams Woodland Park parcels map, this came from a neighbor's attic. So a good thing about doing projects like this is that once people see it in an engaging way to let them kind of choose their own adventure, they want to contribute, they want to add more to it. So I was able to get a ton of these types of things from one particular neighbor, and a lot of it is really phenomenal stuff. So that's the maps. Now, going back to this map page, say I wanted to change one of these out, or say I wanted to add one. The easiest way I do it, honestly, is say I wanted to add one right under here. If I click duplicate section, but I want to get rid of this map, I don't want to delete the group. If you double click it, you can select just one, but I did group these together just so they would be centered. So let's delete that guy. Now, let's see. Insert. Okay. So if I click on that one, I try to make them as big as I can without them becoming weird and distorted. And then where did that? So sometimes it will actually put the new thing you're adding directly below whatever is currently there. So you just take what was there, you pull it down, and then you can move it into the same section. So it kind of puts things in individual sections. I don't know if you see this kind of dotted line here. When you add a new section, it often will make it by default white. I like to change it to not exactly white. Now this one, it doesn't link out to, this is the same as this guy up here. Notice I didn't have it hyperlinked. It's because it doesn't actually link out to another website because it doesn't exist anywhere else. So if I didn't want the link, I would just highlight it and just remove the link. Or I can do this. I can press the trash button. There we go. I'm going to get rid of that because we don't need that guy. Okay, now plat maps. Let's go up to plat maps. Like I said, there are about 9 additions to this neighborhood. These are the plat maps I was able to find, and they link directly to those Google Drive folders. Let's go to that page in the actual viewer. So this just brings you to another page where I've actually uploaded them. So this is the original Williams Woodland Park plat. You can zoom in on these. I think initially I had them linked only to the Google Drive folder. And then one day I changed my mind and decided that they all deserve their own little page. And that's, like I said, that's kind of the beauty of it. You can change things and add things as much as you want. Say I want to add a new button. If you go to Insert and scroll down, you can just put a button. But the button has to link to somewhere. So you can either put a link to say, let's do let's do today's handout, which since I'm here, I'm going to dump that in the chat. Let's go back to where we were. So I just put the link in, insert, publish it. And then we're going to go back to this page. I'm going to refresh it. Sometimes you have to refresh it a few times. There it is. And there's the button. Pretty simple. The reason why I ended up choosing something like Google Sites over things like WordPress, it really has to do with time. I don't really have a ton of time to learn how to code and make things look the way that I want it to look. And also for me, I was already storing a lot of these things in Google Drive anyway. So the fact that it's all integrated makes things easier for me personally. But these buttons, you can link them all out to Dropbox. You can link them to anywhere else you want. But Google Sites, like I said, it is a free platform. You can make as many pages as you want to the best of my knowledge, unless that has changed. And I mean, it's easy to use. I mean, a child could do it. Granted, a lot of kids know more about coding than I do. So that's this stuff. Now, this interactive map. Let's talk a little bit about this. So this was created with something called Google My Maps. So let me show you what that is. So if you do a Google search, Google My Maps is the easiest way to find it. You can click create a new map. So creating a My Maps map always uploads title, thumbnail, and associated metadata to Drive. So anything that you're putting into it, it just automatically puts it into your Google Drive. You do have to have a Gmail account to make this. Now, you have the first layer here. You can upload things. You can title the map something else. Test. Yeah. You can individually put the pins in. That would take forever. So what I do is I import them from a Google Sheet or an Excel or CSV file, whichever. So let me show you what mine looks like. This is why I don't sleep. So I started doing this research because I couldn't sleep, and then it's turned into this kind of monster. So when you want to create a Google My Map, for me, doing it in a spreadsheet and then uploading it and having it automatically populate on the map, it saves yourself a lot of time and pain. And this is how these column headers, this is how you get those that metadata in those individual pins. So let me open up the map to show you again what I'm talking about. So let's look at this guy. So these are those column headers: address, historic name, first owner, year built, link to file. But you'll notice I don't have all this filled out. So if I want it to update, I would just re-import that list back into Google My Maps. You can replace what's there just automatically, and it works pretty well. Sometimes it gets temperamental because, you know, free is always temperamental in some ways, but it is a lot of fun. You can also, I'm going to show you on mine, on this guy. You can also change the theme. You can add a picture. The original version of this, I did put a number of historic pictures in. I'm trying to migrate them over into this newer version of the map. But I mean, having a historic picture in is pretty cool. If you click on the camera button, you can just upload it. You can upload it from your hard drive, USB drive. You can get it out of your Google Drive, whatever works. So back to the spreadsheet. Now, see how I have latitude and longitude here? If you just have in this column the street address, so 222 West Creighton, and you don't have the city, it's not going to come up. It won't come up in Google Maps. But if you put in the latitude and longitude, which I like to do just because I think it's a personal preference. I think it looks better, but also the latitude and longitude actually makes the pins go where they're supposed to go. For some reason with this neighborhood, they don't want to go where they're supposed to go. Now, this is a lot of houses to figure out the latitude and longitude for. There are a couple ways you can do that. If you go into Google Maps, if you zoom in on the house you want, say this one, for example, if you right click, it gives you the latitude and longitude. Now, if you have several hundred houses, that's kind of an undertaking. So there is a way of doing this without having to do it by hand. And it's in Google Sheets. So this is how I auto-populate the latitude and longitude. I will put in the full address. Like I said, sometimes even putting in this full address like this doesn't work the way I want it to. But if I want the latitude and longitude, this has to work. So then I will go to extensions, which is to the right of tools, press app script. Now this is the part where I promised no coding. I'm going to delete this. I promised no coding. I lied a tiny bit. This is just for the map thing. And then I'm going to go to my handout where I put the code in that you need to use. Where did I get this, you say? I got it from ChatGPT. I'm not going to lie to you. So you copy and paste it in, save it. I don't know what that means at the bottom, but we're going to press run. It attempted to execute, but could not save. That's weird. This worked like the other day. We're going to do this differently. We're going to do this in a new sheet. Yes, leave. Okay. Extensions, app script. It might be giving me this issue because we're on Zoom right now. Go to the handout, copy that. You want to delete anything that's already there. And then save it. I think it's because we're on Zoom, because this was working like perfectly fine a few hours ago. Well, anyway, it would automatically populate these into the columns directly next to these. So in column B and C. Pretty simple. Why it's not behaving is because I'm showing other people, obviously. So that's just the map. Now, if you want to put it into the site, doing it in Google My Maps actually makes it relatively simple. So let's scroll down and click map. I'm going to click My Maps. And then because it's all linked to the same account, I just click on the one that I want, select, and that brings it down here. And then I'll make it as big as I want. Now, when you're in the editor, it won't let you zoom, but don't panic, it will zoom. Because once you save it, well, it's already saving to your drive, but once you publish it, it will be interactive like this. Say it's being finicky with you and you're getting frustrated, you can press this button on the right, view larger map, and it just opens it into a new tab. Yeah. Okay, I know this is a lot. This is a lot of information. That's why I try to put as much as I can into the handout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the Q&A and see what questions you guys have. So I'm going to turn my camera back on. Okay, so the first person who was asking about my slides, I stole them from Canva and then I uploaded them into Google Slides. That's where I got them from. Is there a storage charge for space your site takes up? So it kind of depends. I do genealogy, and one of my backups for my research is Google Drive. I have another cloud storage backup that I use as well. So I was already paying for cloud storage in Google. I'm not sure what the limit is for storage in like just the Google Suite period. I think it's kind of low. So if you have your stuff saved in something like Dropbox, linking out will save you space instead of uploading things. So that's why creating those shareable links, which I just realized I didn't show how to create a shareable link. I can do that right now. Say you want to create a link for this folder. If you click on the three dots, it says more actions, and then share. If you click share, you can change the permissions. So I have it set under general access. Anyone with link can view it, but these people who are involved with the neighborhood, they can edit it. You don't want to set that up for something that's public, but anyone, so like you guys are in there and you're looking at stuff, you can view it, you can download it, you just can't edit it. So to answer your question, I'm not sure exactly what the charge is. I don't like to think about how much I pay for cloud storage, but if you don't want to pay whatever it is, link out to whatever else you're already using to save yourself some space. Can you add photos or video to Google My Maps and import file? Yes, you can add photos. And can you add video? I don't think you can add video. If you had a link to a video, you can have that be one of your fields in the spreadsheet. So it's up to you, but photos, yes, I can show you what that looks like in the original map. Come on, go back. Ignore the colors. The colors don't have meaning anymore. So this is an example of of what it would look like if you opened up, if you imported a photo. Can you do it in batches? I haven't found a way of doing it, but ask the robots, ask things like ChatGPT, Google it. But I don't have enough photographs of the houses to even think about batch uploading. Ideally, I would like to photograph every single house in the neighborhood just so there's like one, because things happen. These houses change. You know, back in the 90s, there were a number of houses on Creighton up here. See where all these empty lots are? The city tore houses down that were in bad shape. One of those houses, the city was not supposed to tear it down. They were supposed to tear down the house next door, and they tore them both down. So it's good to try to photograph these things like as often as you can, maybe once every few years, but that will have to wait until it's a little warmer. Okay, and fantastic project and work. In terms of making it public or sharing it with others, any lessons learned to share with us? So as far as sharing it and making it public for people, since I know people in the neighborhood, I tended to show up at events, show up at meetings and say, hey, I'm making this thing. I made a QR code for it. I have a link that I give people as well. And I say, I'm researching all the houses. See if I have something on your house. And if I don't, poke me and I'll research your house next. That's kind of how I've been doing it. This sounds kind of low tech, but it's just the way I've been doing it. And making it public makes it searchable so people can Google mapping Williams Woodland Park and find it. Making the files viewable, so each individual file in these folders viewable. I will say, so if you're, say I make this entire file for Creighton Street viewable to anyone with a link, it will do that for everything within that folder. So if you change the access for a parent folder, it'll change it for everything within, unless there are specific things that you shared where you went in individually for a specific item and changed it to not anyone with link, but restricted. So you can restrict individual things like that. There are not a lot of things that I have like that. If y'all end up finding some, it's like a one-off, probably a mistake, because I don't have a lot of really sensitive information about current homeowners in these files, just because I want to respect people's privacy. Okay, does Google Sites have a legacy option? What happens to the site if you're no longer updating? That's a really good question. I don't know. I've let this thing just kind of sit for 8 months at a time, and then I'll go in and make a bunch of changes at once. I will say this about your research: always, 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 always make copies, back everything up. Don't keep everything in the cloud. For my research, I back up to a 2 terabyte solid state drive. Do I have a second one? Yes. All just in case everything shuts down. I don't want to lose all my stuff. There is even a software that's free that you can download onto your computer that will automatically update specific Google Drive files. If you have Google Drive, like the software on your computer, it'll update those automatically as soon as you plug in one of these. So I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. So if you want to know that, send us an email. But yeah, that's a really good question, Lori. I think that would require a little bit of digging to figure out the answer to that. Okay. I really like the idea of creating a neighborhood history. There's a lot to deal with here, but it looks like it would be fun and take a while to set up and think about. Yes, this did not happen overnight. This is years in the making. I think I started working on this project 3 to 4 years ago. It takes a lot of time, but it's something that will keep me occupied for a few minutes at least. But it's fun. It's a way for me personally to scratch a research itch that I want to scratch, but sometimes after helping people find their family story all day, maybe at home I don't want to do more genealogy. But then I end up essentially doing genealogy, but of houses. So it is a lot of fun. But the best thing to remember is you don't have to get it all done at once. Pick a block, not even a block, pick just like 5 houses and get started that way. I do have a lot of information in the handout, which I'll put a link to that again in the chat. I do have a lot of information in the handout about how to research your house. We do have a program on our YouTube channel that I gave back in 2023 on how to do this kind of research. So that link is in the handout as well. So it's all good fun. I have over 50 sites and there is no charge for the site. Yes, the site itself is free. Storage space is not free after a certain point. There is a limit to storage space, but thank you, Laura, for pointing that out. You can have as many of these as you want. I want to make one for like my family genealogy stuff, but I have to have the brain power to do that. I can only do so many things at a time. Okay. Google deletes accounts after 2 years of inactivity. Okay. Yes, that is true. I haven't been inactive in my Google account for much more than 24 hours. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. That is why it is important to back up your research. So if something happens with your site, it goes down, say there's a nuclear disaster and the internet is broken, we will have our backups. So that's why you want to back everything up. What did you say you saved all your information on so it isn't online in the event everything would shut down? It is a solid state drive. Samsung. This is what I have specifically. You don't have to get this one specifically, but get a solid state drive. I've been burned by external hard drives before, so that's why I got one of these, because I'm a little paranoid. But if you have an external hard drive, they're a little cheaper. They work perfectly fine. Just plug them in every so often and make sure everything, you can still open everything and that it's okay. I mean, I do that with this guy too, but I'm a little less worried about it with this one. So that is what I do. Where can I find title abstracts for Honolulu, Hawaii in the 1920s? So the thing about title abstracts is that there has to be a company that is making them. So most cities and towns, there is like an abstract company out there that makes them. So let's open up one of these. This was a bad example. Let's do this one. So this is what one of those abstracts looks like. They are done by individual title companies. So this one is Kuhn and Company Incorporated. Most people, I've gotten these from people who still have their abstracts and they live in the house. A previous owner gave it to them. They stopped doing these, I don't know, 70s or 80s in Fort Wayne. So I can't speak to Honolulu. You would have to really ask the recorder's office or whatever their version of the recorder's office is and ask, like, were these being done? In the absence of having one of these, you can still research the chain of title through deed records. Okay. What other ways could you use this application? My father was aboard ships through World War II. I've mapped his trips and would like to figure out how to communicate it in a better way. Yeah, you can definitely do that. You could have it be like just a Google My Map. You can have a page with the map itself with the pins, and you can put in, as far as your column headers, different types of information. So like the date, the location, maybe some other information, maybe photographs if you have it. You can have a separate page for pictures of ships. If you have pictures of any of the ships he was on during World War II. There's a lot of things you can do. It's just a matter of, sitting down and trying to puzzle out how you want to set it all up. Okay, so we are about out of time. So I'm going to remind everybody, if you would like a copy of the chat or if you have more questions for me, please send an email to us. Our email is genealogy@acpl.info. I just put that in the chat. And thanks everybody for tuning in. You are all so lovely. It's kind of like bringing in strangers into your house, and your house is a tiny bit messy. So thank you for tuning in. This has been great. Well, I hope all of you enjoy the rest of your evening. And like I said, if you would like a copy of the chat, or maybe you need the handout, or if you have questions, do send us an email. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.